in April, Apple said that the iPhone had been less affected by what's happening with memory. Does IDC think that the iPhone is next for potential price hikes?
Hi, thank you for having me, Ed. Yes, absolutely. The iPhone isn't spared. This is just a delay. iPhone's the largest revenue driver for Apple, and given the hike in memory costs, if they are to maintain their profit margins, there's no way that they're not going to increase the prices on the iPhones. I think what's interesting is that the level of increase, right? That's the question, is when and how much are they going to increase? So I don't think it's a matter of if, but really when and how much. And what we're thinking is, in fact, the memory situation and the crisis has already been in talk and since late last year. So even in our last forecast, we'd already baked in the assumption that Apple is going to raise prices on iPhones. And our thought at the time was, $100 on Pro Max models. But given, the rate of increase that we saw at the Max going up to even 300 and 500 on some variants, I'm beginning to think now that it's going to go up as much as $200 on the Pro Max models.
Nabila, I'm just going to reiterate that for the audience. So you had an assumption prior to the news yesterday that Apple would raise prices on the iPhone. And in your forecast, you assumed a hike of $100 to Pro and Pro Max models, a $50 hike to base models. Again, I know I'm asking you to repeat what you just said, but based on today's information, you think that actually those price hikes may be higher on smartphone or iPhone handsets?
Yeah, and again, this is my personal assessment. I think that it could go up as much as $200 on the Pro Max, and I'll give you two reasons. Is that the churn that everyone's talking, how the price increase is going to impact upgrades, right? The consumer is going to start not purchasing or not upgrading this year, and I don't think that the impact will be very negligible in terms of the churn. One, because the value proposition they have on the devices is Siri AI and Apple Intelligence. That's not going to be available to any devices beyond prior to 15 Pro. Right? So that means only 466 million devices have the capabilities to run Apple Intelligence and Siri AI. So we all know how large Apple's installed base is. That means a significant portion of Apple's installed base is not going to be able to run those features. So that creates a compelling upgrade reason, right, for those users.
Right.
And on top of that, if you think about how much, so we do think the majority of the price increase is going to focus on the Pro Max models. And given those consumers are less price sensitive, a $200 increase really amounts to, most people are buying devices at 36-month installment plans, right? So that only amounts to about a $5 price hike per month. So that's really not going to dissuade that kind of consumer segment. So for those two reasons, I think that makes sense.
The reason that's interesting is, basically the situation is quite clear. Micron is saying memory supply will be tight for 18 months. Prices will remain elevated. Bloomberg Tech producer Zoe Thomas picked out among the dozens of stories we have out this morning the key bit, which is, in the end, the question is now whether higher prices dampen consumer demand, right? That's the bit that's unknown. You seem to be indicating, well, the buyer of an iPhone's got a lot of money anyway. They're not as sensitive to those price hikes. Market-wide, is that going to be true?
And that's why I don't think they're going to create that level of price hike to all of its models. That's why they're going to be very strategic about it. Even if you look at the way they phased in the announcements, last week was just a broader announcement that prices are going to increase. This week it was announcements on the iPads and the Macs, right, and a few other products. And so I think what they're really trying to do, so they're being very strategic in terms of the timing, the announcement, and also the level of price increase they're going to do. So I think they're going to be the lesser models, the base models, the older models might see, half of that, right? But I do think the days of the $50 price increases are gone. So it's just a matter of, Apple understands its brand proposition. Apple understands, even in emerging markets, we're seeing Apple rise at rates that we haven't seen before, right? And again, this is the spread of financing, even that's going beyond to emerging markets. So I do think that Apple is really aware about it, and they're being very strategic in how they go about it. The other thing is that my conjecture is that the reason they made the announcements now and also to other products, is so the consumers get psychologically prepared, right? They don't want the story at launch to be the price hike, but really the value proposition that the phones bring. And I think that's what this is going to achieve by making all these announcements now.